Welcome back to the channel. This game features Nigel against Joe Gallagher, a young English player who was going for an IM norm. This was in the round 5 of the Oakham Young Masters. Both players had had a very good start to the tournament. The game started with a Sicilian defence. And the Najdorf variation. G6 is normally more associated with the dragon variation. It becomes a sort of dragony sort of position. On both sides of castle. The knight comes out to challenge the centre. And here, white would have knights would have played knight to b5 potentially, knight to d5. But after all the exchanges in the middle, we'd have ended up losing a pawn. So wasn't unable to do so at this point. So knight to e3 was played, and the idea is to play a5 at the right moment, something which black needs to prevent. He does so by putting his knight there. But this does allow Nigel to push in the centre, but whether it's sound or not is another matter. He pushes anyway, and the engine doesn't like it, and we shall see why. We can take. Now, in this position, it looks like black can take the e5 pawn with the queen. And to be fair, it looks good, and I can't see why Gallagher didn't do it. I think with the idea is if you play queen to f5 at this position, then bishop d3 will win a piece because the queen won't be able to maintain the defence of the a5 knight. But you can go back to e6, which is a nice, clever idea. And if white takes the knight, then queen to b6 check will pick the knight up again due to the fork. So I think white Gallagher could have taken the pawn. He chose not to, and played rook to d8, hitting the white queen. And this is a critical moment in the game. If white chooses to move the queen, say to e1, then maybe knight to b3. And this is fine for black. He's material up. He's an exchanger, and the g7 pawn will fall. And this is good for black. And if white decides to play queen to b1, then knight to g4 is fine for black as well. And he's just got an advantage, and white really hasn't got much to show for the loss of his pawns, and his pawns are weak. So the critical line was obviously to take the knight and allow his queen to be taken. So black is material up, but white has got 4 minor pieces and a rook against 3 minor pieces and a rook and a queen, and obviously 2 rooks. So an interesting imbalance game to the game. Here Nigel plays knight to d5, hitting the queen and the bishop. And obviously now he's got a big decision to make. There's no easy moves to play here. You could play rook to d2, but then queen. Sorry, beg your pardon. He needs to take the bishop first. I think that's a given. And after the retake, the knight's now on pre, and after the rook check and king to g7, white potentially can play knight takes a5, but then obviously queen takes e2. So he plays bishop to c5, and this obviously threatens checkmate on f8 indirectly. So black has to clear a space for the king. Now white has potentially got two pieces on pre, so needs to do something about it, and bishop to d1 is actually the only move that actually saves both pieces. If he decides to try and play bishop to d4 with the idea of taking on f6 and forcing mate, then black can just basically play bishop to f5, and that shuts it down. And the same goes for bishop to e7. So bishop to d1 was played, and the queen now has to find a square, and Gallagher finds the right square, and queen to c4. If queen to e4, then knight takes a5, bishop a3, h3, threatening mate, loses to bishop to f3, covering the mate, and the black rook will be taken on the next move. So queen to c4 was the right move, keeping an eye on the bishop. So white decides to play rook to d4. A sensible move, but not particularly a doubtful move. But it's very hard to play in this sort of position, which is very complicated. He could have tried bishop to e7, but then again renewing the threat on f6. But black can basically just push the pawn, and after knight takes, queen to e7 forks the bishop and the knight. Or you could try bishop to f8 check, king to h7, knight takes again, but queen to c7 again. And white's got a nice intermezzo, forcing the king away, and then takes the knight. So it's an interesting position, and white had a lot of options, but they all seem to be covered by black. So he tried rook to d4, attacking the queen. And again, the queen has to find the right square. And again, Gallagher does find the right square in e6. So now Nigel captures his knight, but unfortunately falls into black's next move, b6, which forks the knight and the bishop. And white must give up a piece. He played bishop to f3. He could have tried rook to d6, queen to e5, rook d takes f6. But after queen to c5, check, and king to h1, and bishop to f5, black is clearly better and got a big material advantage. So he tried bishop to f3, but unfortunately that still doesn't work due to pawn takes bishop, which hits the white rook, which moves out of the way in order to that blocks the bishop whilst hitting the queen. The queen retreats, and white hits the queen again. And here white retreats the rook to attack the rook on a8, but Gallagher finds a nice move in bishop to g4 and offering a trade of bishops. And also, obviously, if bishop takes a8, then bishop takes e2, and all material exchanges are good for black. A clever idea. So Nigel takes the bishop, and Gallagher chooses to take the knight on a5, so the bishop's still hit. It moves to d7, and black immediately hits it. Giving his queen to a better space, giving the king some space. And at this point, Nigel was in a lot of time trouble in the game, according to the tournament notes. And the position, obviously being very complex to start with, has petered out, and black's just got a massive advantage. And this is actually the losing move. It actually gives up the bishop because now black can play rook d7, and the rook can't be captured due to queen to e1 check, picking up the f2 rook. And at this point, Nigel resigned in the game. An unfortunate loss for him and set him back in the tournament, and moved him to 3 out of 5. But a very good game, very complex, lots of tactics and counter tactics in it. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. And until next time, thank you very much.